Angie Girl, and this episode is brought to you by Art Block, for when you run out of ideas, so you just give up and go on YouTube instead of working on a video for YouTube. In the last video, when I talk about things and also draw them, I said I was going to do a more traditional version of Kaijun by drawing some gym leader OCs as dragons. At least before I gave up and only finished 2 of them. Now, I might go back and do the others later, but I don't really know. I've sort of lost all motivation to work on this, and the only reason it's coming out now, after I spend literally all day working on it, is because I realize I have to get this darn thing done before the end of June, which seemed to jump on me a lot faster than I seem to realize. Anyways, since all Pokemon gyms are type-based, I was planning on making each of the dragons elemental, and making their elements based on whatever type the human gym leader trained. I was planning on having 4, but then I lost all motivation and they weren't done, and I don't even need to feel like I explain myself. I have less than 200 subscribers. Why am I trying to make explanations for something that most people wouldn't bother? Anyway, this is usually the part where I give exposition on the story at large, but I have nothing, so let's get right into it. Mainly because I don't actually know if this would take place in Pibana, the fan-made Pokemon region my OCs exist in, or somewhere else entirely. I have no world building for this if you haven't noticed. Mostly because I was mostly focusing on, well, dragons. The first of the 2 dragons up for today is Rusty, who, in vanilla, that's my way of saying the main/canon story, is the Steel-type gym leader of Oxford City. Now, looking up reference pics for steel dragons led to a lot of dragons covered in armor. And I'm not good at drawing armor. But at least I tried. Mostly by making it look like the armor was actually chunks of scrap metal that were cobbled together, which is very much something Rusty's human self would do. Now you may ask yourself, how does a dragon put on armor if it isn't a part of him? Well, I wasn't really a big fan of the idea that the metal would be growing on him like scales, but some Pokemon like Metang or Metagross are magnetic, so I made Rusty a magnetic dragon. Something relating this to kleptomania it because dragons hoard things normally, and somebody who steals stuff without being able to control themselves might be kind of like magnets or something. I don't know, it was a weird analogy, but it made sense in my head, and I don't feel like explaining backstory stuff, even though what it doesn't matter. In addition, instead of breathing fire, he eats metal. Okay, cool. Well, then he superheats his body and spits it back up. This usually means he's too heavy to fly, but why would he need to? He's a dragon that wears armor! You probably noticed a messy part of the speed draw where the background is half-colored and the dragon is half-colored and it's just a big mess. Well, I don't do backgrounds very often, so I'm not really sure if you're supposed to color the background in first or the character in first. So I kind of just did both at the same time? The big reference pic of the human is so that way I can color pick off the original design. You might have noticed me doing this for the past couple speed draws. Actually, for pretty much every speed draw I've ever done, but I never bothered bringing it up. Speaking of colors, I actually realized Rusty's colors are a lot lighter than I originally thought. Now, despite training steel types, he kinda looks like he trains brown or rock types, mostly because of the colors, which were intended to look kinda like brass or copper or, well, you know, rust. I mean, what can I say, the guy is named Rusty. I was going to color the lines in the background, since that's a good trick to making your backgrounds look neater, but some layer complications happened, so I just went over the whole thing with a ruddy brown and then lightened it to tint the screen. That way it would kind of make the colors all a little bit more similar. For someone who doesn't do backgrounds very much, I think I did alright. Now I had fun with this background, but we'll get to that later. I would say by now you might recognize Edward, but first, this is a dragon, and second, I have to face the idea that not only do I hardly have any viewers, but there's a chance none of them are even consistent. Either way, Edward gets drawn a lot. Mostly because I really love his design, and also because his personality is really fun. He's got like 3 of them. Edward is the ghost-type gym leader of Oxford City, and also the manager / only maintenance worker in the soup factory there who went crazy due to Ghost constantly telling him, "You suck," over and over and over again. A little more complicated than that, but still. Looking up Ghost Dragon tends to yield dragons that look really wispy, like, you know, ghosts or spirits, and skeleton dragons are just dragon skeletons. Since his human self is so lanky, the dragon self should be extra noodly. But there's a bit of a problem with his body being really short and his legs being super long, so to make it look even more disproportionately noodly, we just made his tail super long. Like, twice as long as the rest of his body, because noodles. The bone wings have to do with looking dead, like they couldn't even support him if he tried, and he floats without ever flapping his wings. He's also a very bony boy, since his human self is too. Remember, he's crazy, he doesn't take very good care of himself, and it gets brought up as a plot point a couple of times. The floof at the end of his tail is supposed to look like his fluffy hair, and I really should have mentioned earlier that the spikes on Rusty's head were meant to look like his anime hair. Now, when I noticed that Rusty's colors were lighter than I thought they were, Edward's are actually a lot darker. Considering how much I appreciate color symbolism, it's a wonder I didn't make him almost gray. Unless I somehow decide later to flip this around and say the reason he's purple is because the ghosts in his head said so, and he wouldn't really wear his jacket until after the accident. The shirt underneath it is pretty pale, and it wouldn't be the first time I've assigned symbolism after the fact because I didn't notice the tie-in. When first designing Edward, I actually color-picked all of his colors directly off of a haunter, so that's probably why they're much darker than I realized. I also did this little thingy where I drew him as an Ouroboros, which is a symbol of a serpent eating its own tail. It usually stands for regeneration, but it kinda looks like the guy is choking himself. I don't really have a reason for drawing it other than the image, particularly with the colors fading into each other, just kind of made a lot of sense in my head, but I feel like explaining it in too much detail would ruin the intended effect of having people try to figure it out on their own. Sorry this was overdue, but I highly doubt anyone cares. Even then, I do want to start acting professional. Even though I'm not gonna get recognition for it, it'll make sense so that way, you know, in the future I can say, look, I was professional, and people might be attracted to that professionality. Or something. So, anyways guys, that's gonna be it for now. And as always, leave your thoughts and suggestions in the comment section below, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye people! And dragons are pretty cool, my shifter pack. Looking up ghost dragon tends to yield dragons that look like wispy. That look like a wispy. A little more complicated than that, but still. Looking up reference pics for ghost wait, did I say reference pics earlier? Yeah, I can't. It's midnight, but I don't really care.